Thank you, and I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and thanking you all for the opportunity to speak with you today. Firstly, let me congratulate those of you receiving degrees today, the reason that we're celebrating. You've worked hard and achieved much, and the sense of excitement is palpable in this auditorium. The idea that you are all teetering on the edge of major decisions, planning for the future and getting ready to change the world. I hope for the better. In such an atmosphere, speaking to you is a real challenge. I mean, I'm all that stands between you and celebrating that piece of paper you've been striving for so long. So it would be very understandable if you viewed my words as nothing more than an annoying delay. But I've been given the opportunity to provide you with some guidance in your onward journey, and I want my words to count. Having a daughter who's almost a young adult myself, I know just how hard that is. So I'm going to start with the words of a poet of our time. She sings them, but I won't emulate that. Have you ever fed a lover with just your hands? Closed your eyes and trusted, just trusted. Have you ever thrown a fistful of glitter in the air? Have you ever looked fear in the face and said, I just don't care? It's only half past the point of no return, the tip of the iceberg, the sun before the burn, the thunder before the lightning, and the breath before the phrase. Have you ever felt this way? I wonder if anyone recognises those words and who sings them. Yes, it's Pink, her Grammy Awards song, Glitter in the Air. Now, I heard her sing them beautifully in one of her Sydney concerts several years ago, and I regularly listen to them on my iPod. I clearly have got a teenage daughter. Many people think they only apply to opportunities for love, but I think that they beautifully capture a broader message for life, to throw glitter in the air, to take the opportunities life presents and to live life to the full. But in doing so, to remember that others should also have those opportunities. Let me move from one American icon of today to another American iconic woman of the 1960s. Yes, back in that period of history known as the last century. I refer to Rosa Parks. I wonder how many of you know who Rosa Parks was. Perhaps your recollection will improve if I tell you that she refused to sit at the back of the bus. In the 1960s, in the US, millions of dollars were spent on providing public transport systems. But in many places, if you were black, you could only ride at the back. Rosa's action in refusing to do this was one of the sparks for the civil rights movement. But that was way back then, you might say. It wouldn't happen in Australia today, wouldn't it? For many people with disability, sitting at the back of the bus still isn't possible. They can't even get on the bus. And that's just one of many examples where opportunities are not equal in the world that you are about to change. For those of you unfamiliar with Australia's Human Rights Commission, it's an independent government body which protects and promotes human rights. And my role as Disability Discrimination Commissioner is to ensure that human rights in Australia are being respected. One of those rights, just one, is the right to equality. Human rights are an important part of our lives. In fact, they're so much a part of everyday living that we can often take them for granted. Consider how often you drink clean water, eat food, receive an education, say or write what you think, get treated by a doctor, or expect to be treated fairly by others. All of these everyday activities depend on the protection of your human rights, as well as those of others. The furthering of human rights isn't achieved by courageous acts of outrageous heroism, but by individual small acts every day, which combine to ensure rights are implemented. In Australia, relatively speaking, we do okay in the provision of human rights. But there are many disempowered or vulnerable Australians who don't receive these rights. Now, why should we be concerned about including such people, you might ask? Well, the simple reason is that Australia values a fair go, and that should be a fair go for everyone. But there are other reasons. Firstly, excluding people threatens our security. Terrorist attacks, particularly those in the UK, have been carried out by people who grew up in that country but were pushed towards violent extremism by feeling excluded from mainstream society. Racist attacks against international students in Australia are carried out by people who feel the same way. Secondly, excluding people limits our productivity. If people with disability, for instance, are encouraged off welfare and into employment, then we're all better off. And thirdly, ensuring people are included is just the right thing to do. And so, in all of our activities, we should do it, not just talk about it. From birth, you've been told stories about doing the right thing. And I want to use some familiar stories to explain a bit more about human rights. So my third American icon, this time a man, and I'm sure you've all read his books. It's Dr. Seuss. But do you appreciate what a strong human rights campaigner Dr. Seuss was? Many of Dr. Seuss's books are about human rights. Think of Horton Hears a Who went and saw that movie with a younger sibling a few years ago, where an elephant recognised the rights of a people so small they could hardly be seen. This book is about everyone being equal. Quote, "A person's a person, no matter how small," unquote. This is the equality right that I talked about earlier. Everyone should be on that bus, sitting wherever they like. Okay, you might say to me, but what can I do to contribute to human rights? Well, take Yertle the turtle. This story is about an arrogant turtle king who marvels at how wonderful he is and proclaims he's the ruler over everything that he could see. Yertle orders other turtles to stand on each other's backs to form a higher throne for him so that he can see and therefore rule over more. He keeps ordering more and more turtles to add to his throne so that he gets higher and higher and can see further and further. And the whole time, a single turtle, Mac, on the bottom of the stack, keeps complaining that the turtles are all in pain because of Yertle's greed. Yertle repeatedly silences Mac until Mac decides he's had enough, and a single burp by Mac shakes Yertle off his throne, causing him to fall into the pond below. And the story ends with Yertle being king of the mud, because that is all he can see. Now, what this story shows is that people, and turtles I suppose, should stand up for themselves and not allow their rights and the rights of others to be violated, no matter who is violating them. Yertle's reign as king is toppled by a simple, innocent act committed by the lowest turtle in the stack. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down at the bottom we too have rights. And the turtles, of course, all the turtles are free, as turtles and maybe all creatures should be. Dr. Seuss teaches us that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. He tells us to speak up and have our voice heard. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. In Australia, some people are denied their basic rights because of their colour, their race, their sex, their sexual orientation, a disability, or some other aspect of who they are. They are discriminated against. Indigenous Australians have a life expectancy 20 years lower than white Australians. We don't have pay equity for men and women. Women work some 100 or more days each year to earn the same pay as men. People are excluded from public buildings because of their disability. We're all different in Australia, like the fish in One Fish, Two Fish. In that story, one man benefits hugely by reinforcing difference between two types of fish called sneetches, until the sneetches realise that difference in this case the wearing of stars, should be recognised and celebrated rather than being a cause for concern. Because despite those differences, we should all have the same human rights to receive an education, to think and say what we think, and to be treated fairly. So, as you receive your degrees today and make those plans to change the world, how are the words and actions of these American icons relevant? Well, consider Pink's questions. You've got to not be afraid of failing or being wrong. You've got to grasp opportunities. You've got to believe that you, on your own, can make a difference, because taking risks and standing up for things in which you believe is where ideas, rights and change grow from. In Oh, the Places You'll Go, Dr. Seuss tells us that we each have the potential to do whatever we choose. We have the right to life, the freedom to think, the freedom to express our opinions, the freedom to move and live in Australia, the freedom to leave Australia and to come back again. You have those rights and freedoms. So does the person next to you and in front of you, your lecturers, your parents, your brothers and sisters, the people who work in the cafe, the people who share the suburb in which you live. Everyone has those rights. So be sure to ensure that in whatever is your work, those rights become reality for all Australians. Will you take those opportunities and change the world for the better? Don't be stopped by thinking that you, one individual, can't make a difference. Let me leave you with the words of my fourth American icon, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighbourhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world." Thanks for the chance to speak with you today, and make sure that you throw glitter in the air for the rest of your lives.